All right. Hello, everyone, once again, and welcome to today's final education session, Scheduling Your Shop with a Digital Job Board by Torey Heinz of ShopFlow. What is a digital job board and why even bother? A digital job board is a way to organize and display jobs so that you can streamline your shop and escape the chaos. Find out if you're ready to get started as we follow a simple workflow from start to finish, dig into the details of a complicated job, and discuss how to implement a digital job board to maximize your throughput. A reminder, you can use the Q&A tab to submit questions directly to Torey during the session, and they will be addressed during or at the end of the presentation. Recordings of all presentations during this event will be made available to you all in the coming weeks. Finally, I want to extend yet again a special thank you to Sunbrella, who have generously sponsored all education sessions taking place today and Monday. We're grateful for Sunbrella's continued support of IFAI's educational endeavors. Check out their sponsor lounge on the map, chat with the representatives in between sessions. Don't forget to visit our other showcase suppliers, ShopFlow, Trivantage, Miami Corporation, Strataglass, and of course, Herculites sponsor lounge as well. The platform will remain open for 30 minutes after our scheduled end time of 11 a.m., noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central. So we'll go another 30 minutes beyond that. So with all of that said, I will introduce Torey. Let's get him invited up here on stage for you all now.
Okay, sounds good. So, quick introduction. I am Torey. Actually, let me start with I'll share my screen and we'll start the presentation. So, do that and play. Okay, so we are talking about scheduling your shop with a digital job board. Initially, when I was going to do this, it was just going to be walking through their job board, being able to show a card and kind of how to implement that and walking through the process. But since we actually have a little bit more time today, and the more I've thought about it, I wanted to take a little bit more time to actually talk about scheduling and how to do that, and basically my current understanding of some best practices when it comes to scheduling a small job shop. I definitely don't have all the answers to this. And so I definitely look forward to some feedback and actually having you give some questions in the comments, the questions section. So with that, so I definitely want to answer those. I was hoping that I would be able to see the questions as I presented, but it looks like I'm not able to at the moment. So we'll just keep that in mind. So again, this is my current best understanding. I want some questions. I want some pushback, potentially even if this doesn't make sense for you or your shop, and we could talk about that more. My plan is to run through my slideshow, give the kind of a theory, some best practices of scheduling, and then actually pull up a job board and walk through that process there. So again, my name is Torey Heinz. I am the founder of ShopFlow, which is software to run your shop. We develop ShopFlow for the marine, canvas, and upholstery shops to help them organize their work and streamline their shops so they can escape the chaos. So, quick roadmap for today. We're going to talk about how scheduling is really hard. There is no magical system that will make it just work for you. So why even bother? What's the benefit? So we're going to talk about what is the goal of a schedule. So as long as we're going to be doing the work of scheduling, we want to understand what we're trying to accomplish with that. We're going to talk about what should be scheduled exactly. We're going to talk about then releasing customer orders into production. And we'll talk about limiting our work in progress in order to maximize our flow. We'll talk about handling blockages and what to do when inevitably you're not able to work on a job at a given time when you were planning to. And then we're going to actually go through scheduling with a digital job board. Then we'll do a conclusion, talk about some resources, and hopefully have some time for Q&A. I definitely did, and I'm hoping to build in time for that Q&A. So if we get to the end of it and you don't have any questions, I guess we'll end a little bit early, or maybe I'll just talk randomly for a little bit. So we have, scheduling is hard. So why even bother? One thing is true especially for a small job shop, custom shops especially. It's one of the most complicated scheduling environments there is. My background in tool and die manufacturing and production environments is complicated, but at least you have a pretty standard set of operations. You know what you're building. You're building 100 of them, or 1,000, or 10. But when you're doing a custom job shop, every job is unique, and every project is actually a project. And it's a project scheduling in an environment where you have multiple resources that are required to do that. It's a multi-project environment with a shared critical resource, and it's incredibly complicated. So the key is to be able to have some focusing mechanisms in order to help do that. But anyways, without scheduling though, like, we will tend to do things that we shouldn't do. Now we'll miss deadlines. And I believe that if we want to consistently create value and earn a profit, we just simply can't afford to waste our energy on things that shouldn't even be done in the first place. So if you like chaos, don't bother with trying to schedule your shop. Don't bother prioritizing or planning. But if you like the idea of having a calm shop where you know what's coming up, it's worth it. One of the things to think about with scheduling is you can't keep everything in your head. And even if you could, you need to be able to communicate that to the shop, and you need to communicate that to the people who are doing the work, unless you like having people ask you 20 times a week, what's next, or being able to be interrupted all the time with that. So we're going to talk about what's the goal of a schedule. So we have a limited amount of resources available to us, limited amount of time. We simply can't do everything, period, and we can't do it all at once. And so the goal of our schedule should be to help us to focus our limited resources on the right thing at the right time to maximize throughput. So there's a lot there to kind of walk through. So when we think about the fact that we do have a limited resource, we are maybe 5, or maybe you have just yourself, maybe you have 5 employees, maybe you have 10 employees, but there's only so much time in the week to do the work. And if you are not able to focus, you are going to waste your time. We're going to talk about what the right thing is. The idea of, hold on just a second, I got to pull back. My presentation, I'm going to go back to that. All right, perfect. So then at the end of the day, we want our schedule to help us to say, this is the right thing to work on. What customer job are we working on, right, at the right time? Because we can't do everything all at once. We need to prioritize when we're going to work on it, and who. And the end goal is to ultimately maximize throughput. And by throughput, what I define that is basically each customer order represents revenue or dollars. And so when we think about the goal of a company as a whole, there's a great book called The Goal by Ellie Goldratt. And it basically says that it covers what's called the theory of constraints. At any one point, there's only one thing that's really limiting your business from meeting its goal. And that goal being to essentially make money now and in the future. In order to make money, you need to ensure that you are satisfying your customers, you're protecting your employees, allowing them to grow. But the idea of making the goal is to maximize our throughput And so where that happens is through our customer orders. So that's what we get into what should be scheduled. And so as a starting point, we're going to just talk about being able to release customer orders to production. Customer orders are what drive our throughput. That is what represents the dollars that we're bringing in, is what represents our actual demand. And so if we want to be able to maximize our throughput, we need to be able to prioritize the completion of our customer orders. Pretty much anything else that's not supporting that goal of actually completing a job order is going to be a wasted effort. So in terms of scheduling, again, we're going to be scheduling our customer orders. We're going to be scheduling basically when are they released into production, when are they available to be worked on by employees. And we're not going to get into the low-level details of operations and steps and kind of when those things are done and the order of things. For our purposes right now, we want to stick kind of to the high level and look at when do we say a job is ready to be worked on and when do we actually release that to production. So releasing orders to production. So again, as we talk about this, the idea is that we have acquired the job. They have customer has given us their approval, and now we are looking at, do we have their customer deposit? Do we have all the materials ordered? Basically, is the job 100% ready to be released and to be sent into production? And if it's not, we wait. We don't want to, as much as possible, release a job that is not ready to be worked on, because that's going to interrupt in our flow. It's going to interrupt. Somebody's going to get started on a job, then they're going to have to stop. And what we want to do is we want to maximize or minimize our lead time on a job. And so again, our focus here in terms of scheduling is going to be on simply when do we release this customer order to production, and some mechanisms to help us along the way. Then we're going to talk about, again, limiting work in progress in order to maximize flow. So when we think about going back to the theory of constraints by Ellie Goldratt, he describes some focusing mechanisms in order to help us focus our energy. And the idea is you start with identifying what the constraint is, but we can actually go ahead and just define it as being our actual production process. And actually, what is our WIP? What is our work in process right now? Because until the work is completed, we can't bill for it. We can't. So everything is keyed around that, and that should be for our purposes where we focus our energy. And we're going to, for our purposes as well, kind of treat production as a black box, as I'll say, so that we don't have to worry about, again, all the nitty-gritty of details of how each shop might actually fulfill a job. But it's simply, we want to say, this is what we have in process right now, and this is what we're focusing on. And by limiting what's actually in progress, we're able to limit how many things we're having to contend with at any given moment. For me, I don't know about you, but if I have more than 2 or 3 projects or things on my plate at any one time, I'm simply just not that effective in being able to do that. For me, I just can't keep that much in my head at one time. So we ask the question of, we have a job and it's in the backlog and it's ready to be worked on. When do we start on it? And initially you might think as soon as possible. But again, as we will find and what we have seen is that if you have too much going on at any one time, everything just simply takes longer and there's just chaos, and it's almost impossible to keep track of everything that you have going on. When we talk about handling blockages, so again, I'm walking through my slideshow here, and we're going to get into some of this more on the actual digital job board and walking through these same steps and thoughts. So So when we have a job and it's in production and it's being worked on, and we come across a blockage, information is missing, the customer boat isn't there, whatever it may be, maybe we're just waiting on something else. We want to identify that, flag it as being on hold or blocked, and then instead of just moving on to the next job, this is again where limiting your WIP comes into play. So let's say you come to a point where you've stopped and you now have to determine, do I take another job or not? And you can look at and to see how many jobs are currently in process. And if you say, hey, we're setting our limit to 10 jobs in our shop at a time, or X number of hours, then if you're already at that limit, if you already have 10 jobs on the floor, it's not going to be wise to start a new job. You're going to either want to address that blockage directly and to say, what can we do to focus our energy to get that job unblocked so we can move it through, get it completed and get it billed and get the revenue for that. Or maybe we'll look at some other job that we can move forward on. But instead of just simply taking the next job, we want to focus our energy on actually completing the job that is currently being blocked. So now I wanted to jump into actually looking at scheduling with a digital job board. And so we're going to pull that up now. And so good. All right. So again, I am going to strongly encourage and ask that you put in some questions. I just went through really fast at a very high level some of the topics that I want to cover, and some of my understanding again of being able to schedule. And we're focusing on just production. We're focusing on releasing work or customer orders into production, and trying to limit our WIP in order to do that. So ask questions, peg me. Otherwise, will probably be a short session. So, all right, awesome. So again, what we're looking at now, this is what would be just a digital job board. This is a production board. We can see we have some stages at the top. We have approved, which is basically for our purposes is the customer has given us our deposit. It is a go. And so these stages, the job will land here. This card represents a customer order. And then once we have confirmed that and we know that we can move it on, we're going to look at the review/order column, which this is going to be the case where now as a production manager or as the admin, you're going to make sure that everything in this job is ready, or as we call it, full kit, so that, yes, like all the information is there. I've reviewed it. I've double checked that maybe this was a standard, but there was an exception to this particular work order or that we're going to be doing. And yes, we have all the materials are in. And so I am confident that this is something that we can actually schedule. So then the next stage we have is backlog. And so this is actual work that production can pull from. It is ready. There should be no reason why they can't start on it unless we look at our WIP column and we see we have, if we've set our WIP either at the number of jobs we're doing, or as we can see, we also have number of hours that are planned. So if we've set that limit and we've met that, we should not be pulling anything in from our backlog. And so WIP should represent things that are currently in progress. And then we have completed, which is job is complete and it is ready to be inspected before it moves on to basically the building process. So we're going to take and just create a card now that we can walk through, and we'll see how this process goes. So we'll start here. I'm just going to do Heinz. We'll do test. Save that to get it started. So this is our start. We have our basic information about what this is. We're going to select our card type. And I'm not going to spend much time in this area, but we'll just be able to put in customer name and have that saved. So since we're focusing on production and scheduling, we're going to start by adding a work order. And we're going to say we're going to do a couple things. We're going to do a cover. So we'll start with that. We're going to add a enclosure. And maybe we have a quick repair to do as well. And so as we look at this, we can see we have our work orders that we can click into. And we can see some operations that need to be done and what stages those are at. But first, we're just going to add in some material. So let's use some umbrella. We'll make it blue. And I'm going to say 4. And order status is needed for that. We have some reinforcement material, but I'm not going to get into that. Same thing here. Let's add our fabric as the umbrella, and we'll say black. And again, the quantities are not going to be accurate because I really don't know for sure. We're going to say these are needed. So we can see now that we have this customer order in review order, and we have our material or our job, and we're going to review it and now look at it again. And let's pull it back up, and we're going to say now that this is actually on hand, and this is on hand. This is just going through our process to say our checklist to make sure that we've actually done what we need to do. And now I'm actually going to set a due date for this. So scheduling by due dates is maybe not as common, or maybe you don't schedule by due dates currently. But it is one of probably the simplest ways to simply indicate the priority of a job. So let's go ahead and just set a due date. Now we can save and close that. Clear our filters. And so, but we're looking at our jobs. They are currently sorted by due date, and we can see jobs that are ready for review. And I actually, let's pause for a second. I forgot to go back to this job and say, use a tag to say this is ready, so that I could then filter on that and say that it's ready. So I'm going to go ahead and move this into our backlog. And so again, we can see our backlog, and you can see that that job is there. But let's say we want to, for our purposes, prioritize this job. And let's say we want to, we don't really want to set a due date. We just want to get this done as soon as possible. And the thing that I would recommend for doing that is simply set a due date that is very much intentionally in the past of 1999, January 1st. And so that will automatically move that to the top and let us know that that is the next thing to grab. Go due date again. So again, going back to the idea of now, I'm going to say that this job for Heinz is full kit. It's ready to be worked on. And so going back to one of the goals of saying, what is the right thing to work on? So hopefully, as we've done our work and our due diligence to define this job and what needs to be done on it, and we've said this is the next best thing for us to work on. Now, again, just before I go into the next step of moving into the whip and kind of handling that and thinking about our blockages, to think about in terms of this job itself, is this a good job for us to even work on? Before we even get to this point, thinking about the fact that we have limited resources means almost that not everything should be scheduled. Some jobs shouldn't even make it onto our schedule at all. So, and there are some tools that I recommend for that, as well as thinking about the type of jobs that bring you the best revenue, the type of customers that you like working with, and the ones that actually just bring you joy. One of my goals overall as I think about and talk to people is I want people to be able to just enjoy the work that they're doing more. So anyways, just something to think about. Some jobs shouldn't even make it through your door, and having some mechanisms to say, this is not ideal. This type of customer, this type of job just does not bring me joy. They're always picking on the price. They're hard to work with, whatever it may be. So I just wanted to kind of mention that real quick. So now, if I am in production and I'm ready to say, I'm looking for the next thing to work on, I can grab this next job, and let's just say 10 is our limit, and I say I can definitely work on this. So we can take it and say now it's work in progress. And now we can see we have 10 jobs in progress, and our Heinz test is at the very top of that. So now let's say we're jumping in here, and we're going to start working on this process. And let's sort this by team and say I am on the pattern install team. And I'm now going to look for simply things that can be done by me. And so we can look at this and see that the next operation for this job is going to be done by the pattern install team. And so I can jump into this and say, yep, I have it. I have what I need. I've done my pattern. I've done the shoot. And now I am done. I'll save and close that. And maybe I want to now jump onto this. And again, this is real time. This is not as fast as it would go. But then this is a question install track. I'm just going to mark these as complete so that we can see that when this is being filtered by team and we're looking at work in progress, we can now see jobs that are basically waiting on me. Again, so that your employees and so people can know what is the next best thing to work on. So let's go ahead and now clear our filters, go back to due date, and maybe let's say now we're working on this job, but something came up. We realized that there was an error or missing information. Now, so let's go ahead and tag this as hold and waiting on material, or we'll say block. So now we have a flag on this job, basically saying that it's on hold, that it is blocked. And so maybe we're not able to work on this job currently. So again, going back to the idea of saying, well, what do I work on next? If this one is blocked, maybe we're going to look at this next job and we go through it and they say there's nothing that I can work on. And I want to be able to go to the next job, but I can't yet because we have maxed out our whip and we don't want to have too many things on the floor at one time. And so now you have a choice to say, now is the time that you would say either I need to unblock this job somehow, maybe now is the time to actually go to administration or sales or go to the boss, right, and say, hey, listen, I can't move forward on this right now. We need some help. We need to make sure that we are getting this done. This is going back to the theory of constraints, which says if we have one constraint that is limiting our throughput or limiting our business from doing what it can do, from meeting the goal, that means that that's where everything should be focused. And if we are blocked on moving forward in our production, then anybody who can help free that up, if it's the sales manager, if it's the front desk person, whoever it is, that is the most important thing. And every other constraint or resource should be now focused in on being able to free up that job so they can be worked on, so we can keep production moving and not have these interruptions. So that would be one way, basically, to say, all right, we have this blockage. We need to stop and focus on that and come back to it. So we're going to go ahead now and say that that has been relieved. It's no longer blocked, and start to, let's see. And basically that's it. So now we're going to start walking through each of these processes. We're going to add time to it. We're going to see how much hours we have. And when it's all done, I'm not going to go through all these to mark it as complete, but we can now simply move this to completed. Let's set a date for today, save and close. So now this job has been completed, which means it's ready to be inspected. It's ready to be sent off to billing if that is necessary. So that is my walkthrough of how to actually implement this scheduling on the job board. Once we have prioritized things and kind of handled the blockage. And I don't see any questions coming through, which kind of anticipated a little bit. And I also am running low on battery. So going to the initial presentation before mine about solar panel, solar energy, I am actually currently in a motorhome in Florida. So originally when this was scheduled for Jacksonville, we bought a motorhome and said, hey, we're just going to go down there as a family. And we made it. And so we're in Jacksonville basically right now doing this. So I'm going to start my generator to make sure that I had enough power to continue with this. And yeah, if we don't have any questions, I might circle back just a little bit. But either that means I answered everything well, or it was just really boring.
Well, hey, Torey, this is Aaron chiming in. I'm not sure if you just started your generator or if you need to step away to start your generator, but I'll...
I actually just started it. So.
Okay, perfect. Well, let's see if any questions come in. We'll just give it a few seconds here. But just like before with Jack and this morning with Chad, of course, the platform will be open now for an additional hour. Andrea says, you're not boring. She's just trying to digest the volume.
Good. And I do want to leave some extra time here and talk through it. And I realize I probably nerves or whatever it may be, just went through it way faster than I probably should have. But yeah, I'm definitely available for questions and available even to have a question, because the things I'm talking about are, each shop is different. And so it may not be applicable to your shop, or you may say, that's just crazy. No one would ever do that. And this is my current understanding of what I think is a good best practice. So, so I do see Jeff asked the question, what are the key areas where you'd customize this platform for different shops? That is a great question, because each shop is so different. So just a second. And largely, it comes down to primarily the type of work that a shop is going to be doing. And so we can customize it either at the top level. I'll say this, the size of the shop or how complicated it is determines a lot of the boards. So currently you can see here we have a sales board, right? And so this is primarily the sales level, which even if you're a single man shop or a single person shop or a large shop, having a separate sales board makes sense. But if you're a larger shop, you may have more processes. Here we have multiple stages just in the sales process of, intake, quick quote, doing a formal quote, our follow-up process, future opportunity. So we have a large number of stages in terms of the actual sales process. So that's one thing that would determine. Then we have going into production. Again, the larger shop you may have different stages for different ordering. You may have a separate stage just for ordering, or you may have a separate stage just for review or QA or install, whatever it may be. So that would be something that we could would want to tailor depending on what your process is. And then for admin, again, I have this as like kind of like after the job is complete, we're going to review, we're going to call, we're going to invoice, those types of processes to make sure that we actually get paid for the job. But then digging into, for the different types of shops that are out there, your actual process of what you're going to do on a job, that's huge. That's going to vary hugely. So let's just jump into, this is a work order. Again, we can schedule our work orders. We can schedule our jobs. We can also determine which order we want to do the actual individual work orders in. So the again, this card, this at the top level that we're looking at, represents a customer order. One customer may have multiple orders with you, but this is one order that they've placed with you, and inside of this is the individual jobs that we may work on. And so you can see that this has fields in it, material, reinforcement, thread, clears. So for each shop or each work order, you can customize the field that you have there, and you can create a template to do that. Or you can also simply add a field on the fly to say this is a date, let's say order by. And so here we now just say we need to order our material by the 26th in order to get our material. So we can customize the fields and the information that you're interested in. Again, if we look at the card details, and I'm probably jumping around too quickly through this, it's a lot of information to take in, but we can customize the type of information that we want to have on hand with this card as well. Depending on the type of card, we can have recreational or commercial, or we can have an awning type job. I can show you that as well, but detail level, fields, work orders, and the details on that work order. And then we have operations. People to say, depending on how complicated it is, we can have different operations. Let me get into one that has some more details to it. So. Right, so here we can customize what operations we're going to do on a job. We can determine how many planned hours we have for that job, and sometimes we may have some additional steps we want to add below there as well. So inspect, whatever, and then we can have those added as well. So we can have quite a bit of detail, and then the customization again comes down to is what do you want to track, what do you want to make sure that is done. And this really becomes just the power of a checklist to make sure that when we're going to do whatever type of job, that we have covered all of our bases, that we have covered all the details. So, so the question was again, what areas we customize, and really, it's very customizable in terms of that. But what I would spend a lot of time with is understanding what the end goal is, what really matters in terms of your shop, what is it that you're trying to optimize for, and then help you do that. Because I believe strongly in doing the simplest thing that works. We oftentimes tend to say, oh, I can customize it, I can do whatever. And any type of software system that you use, you need to determine what your goal is ahead of time. What do you want to get out of it? Because if you make it too complicated and add too many details, almost for sure, you will not utilize it. People will just ignore it and they won't use it. But if you start off with the simplest thing that'll work, you're more likely to adopt it and start actually getting your information into the system and starting getting value out of it right away. So I see another question. It says, I have a customer where we get multiple jobs per week. Can we differentiate by job instead of name? Definitely. So I look at this in terms of the title. So I often recommend having a naming convention or standard, right? So maybe you have customer name. So we'll do Heinz. And then maybe you use a job number, which we actually have a way to turn on job numbers in ShopFlow as well, to say if you want to use job numbers and assign a job number to each job, or maybe you use a PO number. So you have a 1, 2, 3, or whatever it may be. So that would make a lot of sense that you could use the title to differentiate that. And then from your customer list, let's say you have a customer that you repeat, they can be in the system. And so you can select the customer, you can edit their contact information and then save them. Not every contact gets saved into the database. So that is something that you would need to determine. If it's simply if you're in the sales process, right, and you have an intake, let's do a new intake. And again, we'll do Heinz test two. And we're just going to put in it's a recreational job. Hold on. And we're not going to save this contact, but we put in 555, done for an email at nobody.com. That's your email, 555. And now this information will get saved to the card, but not get saved into the database. But if we look at our contacts, we can look through and see maybe this is the customer that we get multiple jobs from. And we can see that they have 6 cards in the system, right? And to be able to pull up their jobs or filter by their jobs. So that's hopefully that answers your question, to be able to say, yeah, we have one customer, multiple jobs. I would create a card for each job that they come through, because you're treating it and you're scheduling it in that term. So, okay, so what is the time clock feature? That's awesome. Yeah, so one of the big things I would say to answer that question, in terms of production and scheduling, so I use the kind of initial example, just limiting your WIP by the number of cards that you have in this system. But really, it comes down to the number of hours that you're going to be able to produce in a week. So if you have X number of employees, and you can do, let's say you can do 50 hours per week of production time, you're going to want to look at that and plan on your hours. So there's 2 ways to do that. Once we put in our hours, we'll get to the time clock. So we can see for each of these operations, we plan X amount of hours for them. And then we can actually come into here and actually enter in duration of what that actually took. Let's say it took 3 hours, and then we can switch to that task. So now right now I'm actually logged into that task. So the time clock is started on this, and it is running and it's adding time to it. Let's just save and close the task. But you'll see immediately that 3 hours I entered in went to the top of this column. And so the time clock exists so that we can know all of our 120 hours that we have in WIP, how many hours have we actually applied to those planned hours. If we come into our time clock now, the time clock feature shows me what I'm actually currently working on. And I can see I'm on this job, I'm in this operation, and now I can switch to just a general shop. Maybe I'm cleaning, and I can switch to that task, save and close, and now I'm on this general task of just working on cleaning up around the shop. So that's the time clock feature. Just really does help in terms of being able to schedule, to know if you are putting in your planned hours, and you know that basically, well, we have, what do we have? 464 hours in the backlog, and we have 100 hours in WIP, and we can only do 50 hours per week, right? We're 10 weeks out, right? We can't commit to doing that job for another 10 weeks. So hopefully that answers the question, what the time clock feature is and how it does tie into scheduling your shop. So.
Not seeing any other questions come through.
Okay.
But please, of course, continue to submit them if you have any in the next minute or so. Otherwise, Torey, I assume you'll be sticking around in the shop flow showcase supplier space for a little while at least.
I will.
You can also, of course, share your screen within that space should anyone come in and want to continue the conversation or check out some of these features in a little more detail. So I guess with that said, I want to...
I do have some time.
You've got a lot of time. Yeah, go for it.
Right. I think I would like to maybe touch on a couple resources that might be helpful in terms of this. So I mentioned the book, The Goal. So this book is called The Gold. It's by Ellie Goldratt. It's been around a long time. It's been applied into manufacturing a lot. So a lot of what I have presented and thought through is based in this book and the theory of constraints. And so I would recommend The Goal in terms of like if you're production management. Another one is by the same gentleman is Critical Chain. So this is another resource called Critical Chain by Ellie Goldratt, the same gentleman. And this is really deals so well with project management in terms of especially a small job shop where every job is a project. And how do you ensure the shortest lead time for that project? And again, the whole idea of limiting your work in progress, eliminating bad multitasking, eliminating distractions is a big emphasis here. I have, and then two other books. You have Profit First. Oops. Yes. So these are just some books I highly recommend in terms of understanding like how to prioritize your shop. So Profit First is a great book in terms of keeping your mind on what, because if you're not profitable in your business, if you're not doing things that are going to help you with that, and then you're either a hobby or you're just going to go out of business. And so he has another book called What's Next, or Fix This Next. Again, this process of identifying what is the next best thing to work on. So I have more of that. I probably should have a slide for that too. Maybe I'll put together a document with some other resources. But I just wanted to cover those real quick. I read a lot of books about business and process, and so hopefully trying to incorporate that into some of what we talked about today. So that's probably all. Yeah, I will definitely be available in my booth to answer any questions or talk through. But overall, I just want to say just thanks for being awesome. I love this group. I love the people in it. It's been an amazing ride and opportunity to be a part of this. And yes, thank you.
All right, Torey, appreciate you being here as well, and we're thankful for your time and your energy and your efforts in providing us with this presentation today, and also, of course, for sticking with us through some of the training sessions that we did prior to the event as well.
Perfect. Yeah.
So yeah, big thank you to Torey. Big thank you to everybody who's in attendance at this session and at the Fabricators Conference and Showcase last Friday and today. We appreciate that you've stuck with this event over what seems like a lifetime of reschedules and format changes. I think this event was originally supposed to take place in December of 2019. That's no joke, but here we are. And of course, we're all optimistic for a return to some normalcy in terms of in-person events and regularly scheduled programming. So thanks also for your resilience, if nothing else. So As has been mentioned, the platform is open for about another 40 minutes until 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. So please feel free to stick around, chat with our sponsors, chat with our showcase suppliers, visit Torey in his booth. I'd be remiss if I didn't once again say that we're grateful to Sombrella, our education sponsor for the event. We are also, of course, incredibly thankful to all of our other sponsors and showcase suppliers. So I want to personally thank Herculite as an event sponsor, and then our showcase suppliers, Trivantage, Miami Corporation, ShotFlow, and Strataglass. We're looking forward to seeing everyone again in person in the near future, hopefully. And thanks again for your support and partnership. Take care, everyone.